We dedicate also the class to a special neshama. Her name was Jacqueline Chaya Esther Bat Shmuel. Her yahrzeit is coming up. Her neshama should have an aliyah. And Be'ezrat Hashem, any other souls that needs also our blessings, then should merit to rise higher and higher in the worlds above. And Baruch Hashem, Purim is coming up. And this year we're lucky, we have 2 months of Adar. So we have double the power to get ready, but nevertheless Purim is a very, very auspicious time. And needless to say, one of the greatest holidays. You don't have to cook too much, and you get to enjoy a lot of sweets. But nevertheless, Purim is a very, very powerful day that even our sages say that le'atid lavo, in the future, when Mashiach is going to come, all the holidays are going to be cancelled, but Chanukah and Purim will not be cancelled. And not only that, that all the books are going to be cancelled, but Megillat Esther will not be cancelled. Which of course, there's many explanations. What does it mean it's going to be cancelled? Doesn't mean that we're not going to stop, that we're going to stop celebrating these holidays, or that the rest of the books will be cancelled. Rather, when Mashiach is going to come, Mashiach will reveal to us all the information we need to know, and we're going to know everything. But with Megillat Esther, we're going to continue and continue and continue learning, and the depth behind Megillat Esther is so deep that even after Mashiach comes and we, so to say, master everything, that will continue learning. And really the holiday of Purim is such a powerful day that we can take so much from it to take us to the next level, which is exactly a month after that, which is the holiday of Pesach. The Pesach is of course signifying freedom, going out of bondage and slavery, which is basically what we're looking for, our own personal slavery. And when the preparation for a certain mitzvah, for a certain act, for a certain holiday is the right way, then you benefit the most out of the holiday. The word holiday in English doesn't make sense. All the words in English don't make sense. When you learn Torah, of course, I'm not talking about when you're just speaking. To learn Torah, you have to really learn it in Hebrew. When you're looking for translations and all sorts of other ways of learning the Torah, it doesn't work well not in Hebrew. Just the other day I was giving a class, and every 2 minutes I found a difficulty, and I was like, it does not work well in Hebrew, in English. It has to be said in Hebrew. And there's no other way to learn the Torah but in Hebrew. And I was recently giving a class about the leap year, why we have a leap year, and how is it affecting me. And I kept saying the word leap year, and there's no sense to leap. In Hebrew it says shana me'uberet. It's a pregnant year. That's what makes sense, not leap. But nevertheless, same thing we have here. Holiday is a vacation, when I go on a cruise. But in Hebrew, holiday is a chag. And chag comes from the word in Hebrew, lachug. Lachug means to go in a circle. A perfect circle you make with a mechoga. Also the hands of the clock, we call them mechogim. So chag means, not that I'm celebrating something, not that I'm going on a vacation. Rather, it means that the cycle of the year has reached to the same place. It goes in a circle, in a cycle. This is Chag. So when a certain holiday happens in the Jewish calendar, it's not because something necessarily happened in the past. Yes, we celebrate Pesach on the 15th day of Nisan because that's when they left Egypt. But that's not why we celebrate. Happens to be that they left Egypt on that day because of the power of the day. Any other day they would not be able to leave Mitzrayim. That's the only day to leave Mitzrayim. Same thing with Sukkot. We're not celebrating Sukkot because that's the time when they sat in Sukkot. This is the time when a certain energy came down to the world, and because of that energy it allowed us to celebrate that holiday. So we have biblical holidays, Shavuot and Sukkot and Pesach. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are not holidays, they're just auspicious days. And then we have rabbinical holidays, Purim and Pesach, Purim and Chanukah, which, if you remember, we talked about it last time. Chanukah, the miracle was with the victory of the war and the finding of the pitcher of oil and so forth. And in the beginning, they didn't consider it such a great miracle. They just said, okay, another miracle in our history. You know how many miracles our nation has, and we're not celebrating it? Why did they celebrate Hanukkah again? Because the next year, when the same date came, they saw, the heads of the generation, the sages of the generation, which is a level that we can't really relate with. The sages at the time, they had such a high level of Ruach HaKodesh that we don't know how to relate with such a level of individuals. But they were able to see the same godly light that came the previous year returned again. And they were like, okay, if the godly light, this energy, is shining again in the world, must be that it will come again and again and again, and therefore they decided it will be a holiday. Same thing with Purim. That in the beginning, okay, it was a great miracle, we were saved. You know the famous joke, they wanted to kill us, we were saved, now let's eat. So that's all of our holidays. So same thing with Purim, we were saved, but the next year they saw that this godly light is returning, so it's like, okay, this is not stam a date. This is something that changes in the universe. A certain godly light comes to the world to visit again, and if I tune myself to this moment, then I'll be able to receive from this energy. With that said, it's just for us to understand what is the power of this day. Now, to really explain in depth the power of the day of Purim will take us a course, not a class, because it's such a powerful day that there's so much information to take from that day that really will take us many hours to cover it. But nevertheless, we want to know a little bit of something that I can prepare myself, because I have two months now. So I have not 2 weeks from the beginning of Adar. I have a month and a half from the beginning of Adar. So we still have about 6 weeks to Purim. Nevertheless, I want to know what can I take from that day. Hanukkah, we know it's a auspicious time to increase in light. And Pesach is a time when I can go out of my own slavery, my own Mitzrayim, my own difficulties and challenges. But Purim has a few very strong characteristics, and it's all hidden in the Megillah. Not so many holidays, if any, they have a story behind it. Here we have not only a story, we have a whole Megillah behind it. And you know, that already became a slang. Somebody sends you a big letter, you go, they send me a Megillah. So we have the Megillat Esther, which just the name of Megillat Esther is telling us everything. Megillah comes not from the words a scroll. Rather, it comes from the word in Hebrew, legalot, to reveal. And Esther is not the name of the actress. Her name was Hadassah, it wasn't even Hester. By the way, just for the knowledge, Esther in Persian is moon. So Achashverosh called her moon, the same way that other people or kings, they call their wife in different names. Her name was Hadassah, it wasn't even Esther. Nevertheless, Achashverosh in Persian called her moon, and the moon in Persian is Esther. But Esther comes from the word in Hebrew that something is concealed and not revealed. So we have the Megillah, the revelation of something that is concealed. So the whole Megillah, yes, it's a story. It's a true story. There's no exaggeration in that story. There's no inventions in the story. Whatever it says in the Megillah, that's how it was. But nevertheless, just the title, Megillat Esther, is the revelation, revealing whatever is concealed. And very interestingly, I'm sure you noticed that the name of Hashem is not mentioned in the Megillah, not even once. Not Yud Kei Vav Kei, not Elokim, not Aleph Dalet Nun Yud, not Shin Dalet Yud, and any type of the name of Hashem is revealed there. We do know that every time it says the word HaMelech, the king, it is referring to Hashem. And every time it refers and it says the word HaMelech Achashverosh, then it's talking about Achashverosh. This is when we know to make a difference. But Hashem's name cannot be found in the Megillah. Now really, when you're looking at the Megillah, there's endless hints and endless beautiful explanation way beyond the story that what we can see. Bechlal, it says in the Talmud, in Tractate Megillah, that the Megillat Esther was written in Ruach HaKodesh, in the divine inspiration. And the Ramchal says that anything that is written in Ruach HaKodesh is the divine inspiration. Some individuals, they have what's called the Ruach HaKodesh. This is not power of prophecy. This is a whole different thing. Nevuah, prophecy, is one thing, and some individuals will have the power of prophecy, and some individuals won't have prophecy, but rather they'll have Ruach HaKodesh. And some will have both. But nevertheless, Ruach HaKodesh is when the divine inspiration is dwelling on a certain individual, and they see things way beyond the physical structure of the world. They see things in a more deeper way. We know so many times of great tzaddikim that they were able to see through a person and to see everything about this individual. The Ramchal says, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, he says that anything that was written in Ruach HaKodesh, it means that it's not a human intellect. It's a godly intellect. It's a wisdom, a godly wisdom. So even though it's dressed in regular words, it doesn't mean that my physical brain will actually be able to go to the depth of what the words are saying. I can understand the surface and I can understand the story, but not necessarily will be able to go to the depth of what the godly wisdom behind it. There are unbelievable books with such great depth of really what's going on behind the Megillah. There's a very interesting individual who lives where I live in Tzfat. Bechlal, Tzfat is surrounded with a lot of interesting characters, we'll put it this way. It's not the average individual lives there. And as some of the local people say, the city attracts all the... We'll leave that to your imagination, but we definitely get a very interesting bunch around there. So, not too long ago, a very, very, very special man made Aliyah. You definitely need to be somehow acquainted with him because he's a very successful doctor, was here in the United States, and he got a very special revelation from Rabbi Nachman, and he wrote hundreds of poems on Likutei Moharam. Book this thick. He has a WhatsApp group. I'm not that I'm promoting him right now, but I will give you later the information. Very, very special individual, and he wrote in his Ruach HaKodesh poems about Likutei Moharan that are unbelievably amazing. And this is a simple individual, but nevertheless he found his way to Tzfat. Very special individual. And again, I'm not now promoting him in any type of a way, but he made a funny observation, and he says everybody in Tzfat are cuckoo. So, but nevertheless, why am I saying all this? Because there is a very interesting man who's in the neighborhood. I don't even know where he gets it, but he always gets all these books that you can never find anywhere. And he has a little store. He comes to our shul, and he comes with all these old books. I don't even know where he gets them. It's always gems, and he sells them for 10 shekels a book. Doesn't matter which book it is. I have a whole library from his books. And they have inside stamps because they were belong to somebody and different dedications. But always when he comes, he goes through his books and I find all these gems. There was a certain book that I was looking for years, and it's not even in print, and I was able to find with him. Why am I saying that? Because throughout the last couple of years, I found such rare books specifically about Megillat Esther with unbelievable insights and such beautiful teachings about the Megillah that literally we can make a whole course about the Megillah. But nevertheless, today we're just going to concentrate about a few things that are more practical. Even though I like learning things that are very deep and very mystical, but if I don't bring it down to something practical, then what's the point of learning it? To say that I learn fancy stuff, that's not the point of it. The point is if I take something that I learned and I know how to bring it into action, then my learning is actually fulfilled its mission. And if I just learn to throw out big terms in the universe, then besides sounding arrogant, then I didn't do anything with my learning. The Mishnah says that the whole point of learning is lilmod al menat la'asot, to learn for the fact of doing. If I'm not doing it, so why am I learning it? So the whole point is to take from the Megillah a few of the hints and to know how to apply it in my life. And like I said, the Megillah is revealing a hint that every time that it says the word Melech or Ha-Melech, it's referring to Hashem and not necessarily the Melech Achashverosh. Now, there are many different angles to look into the Megillah, but nevertheless, in every story has to be the hero. We have a Mordechai, we have a Esther, and always has to be the bad guy in the story. So we have Haman, and we have not only Haman, we have also Achashverosh. The whole story happens in Persia, in Iran, and we're going to focus a lot on the power of Haman, because Haman, nevertheless, that he's an individual, but Haman also represents many other things. And we have on the other side of Haman, Mordechai, and Mordechai was the righteous individual that is able to fight the power of Haman. I've mentioned many times that Shlomo Melech, King Solomon says, "Ze l'umat ze bara Elokim." The Kadosh Baruch Hu created everything with a pair. One side is good, one side is bad. Everything has keneged, what is called leumat ze. Even in Kedusha, you have, for example, you have Moshe Rabbeinu. There's a leumat ze of Moshe Rabbeinu, who was Bilam, and our scripts say that Bilam, if he would go to a positive side, Bilam will be greater than Moshe Rabbeinu. But nevertheless, we always find the leumat ze. Leumat ze is my mirror. I know people say that everybody has a twin in the world. This is not what I'm talking about. Rather, there's always going to be something that opposes anything that is coming from Kedusha will come from Tumah, from purity and impurity. Haman is a certain power that we're going to have to find out exactly what's the Haman, because each and every one of us has a Haman inside me. Bechlal, the teachings of Kabbalah explains that the whole story of the Megillat Esther is my life. It's the whole story is in me. In me there's a Mordechai, in me there's a Esther, in me there's a Haman, in me there's a Achashverosh. I just have to figure out who's who and how I'm controlling everybody. But we'll get to that towards the end. How do I recognize these characters in the Megillah within me? But within me is the entire story. On the other hand, Haman is the power, the negative power, then Mordechai is the counteractive. Mordechai is the power against it. The whole story happens at the time of the Galut Bavel, at the exile of Bavel, which, if you remember, after the destruction of the first temple, they all got kicked out of Yerushalayim. The prophet Yirmiyahu says, don't worry, it's not as bad as it seems. In 70 years, we're making a U-turn. At least they got a good news from the prophet. And 67 years later, that's when the whole story happens. 3 years later, it's when they go back to Eretz Yisrael and they start building the construction of the second Bet HaMikdash. But nevertheless, at the year 3405, that's the year when they killed Haman. We're now in 5779, so go back to year 3405, that's when the whole story happens. 3 years later, like I said, they go back to Eretz Yisrael and they start building Bet HaMikdash with the funding of the Persian bank. So here you need funding, you go to Chase. Then they needed funding to build Bet HaMikdash. They went to the Persian bank who said, I will fund it. But nevertheless, the Megillah is, so to say, telling us, in other words, how is God preparing us for the redemption. At that time also, Hashem was preparing them for the redemption. They were in exile. There are 5 exiles that we know of. I know many will argue and they say there's 4 exiles, but really there's 5 exiles. And at the time of Paras, this was called Galut Bavel. Some call it Galut Paras, but nevertheless less important to go into these details. But they were in exile, and the Megillah is preparing them how to go out of exile. Each and every one of us in our personal life is in exile. There's not one person in this planet that is not in exile. There's not such a thing. 1 out of millions will be maybe in the level of a tzaddik and will be able to be out of their own personal exile. But we're all stuck in exile. One person their exile will be financial debt, another person's exile will be health problems, another person's exile is their marriage, and so forth. And again, not to step on anybody's toes right now, but we're all living in some type of a situation that this is my exile. And sometimes my exile can be that I don't even know how to deal with my own emotions. I don't know how to deal with my own anger or my frustration, sadness, depression, and so forth. We're not going to get too much in details, but the point is that we're all in some type of an exile. And if we would be able to flick our fingers and to be redeemed and to go into some type of freedom, then I would do it in a second. So there's my personal exile, and there's the exile that the entire world is in. The Megillah is coming to prepare me how to go out of exile. And not only how to go out of exile, is how to behave, react, and live while I'm in freedom. You know, the easiest way to explain it, take now a prisoner that was sitting in jail for 20 years. Take the prisoner out of jail. Put him in society. You think right away he can get a job and live his life normally? No, he has to go through some type of rehabilitation. He was in jail for 20 years. He doesn't even know when he went into jail, there wasn't even Facebook. Now he goes out, he said, Facebook? What's Facebook? So, nevertheless, same thing with us. We are in exile for so many years. You think that Mashiach comes today and we're all going to get out of exile? Right away we're just going to accept it as it is? We have already a mentality of a slave. Look at what they did now in Mitzrayim. We just read that. It's fresh in our mind. They had the mentality of slaves for years after they went out of Mitzrayim. To a point that 80% of the nation didn't want to go out of Mitzrayim because they were afraid of, this is new for me. I don't know how to relate with this new reality. Same thing here. So the Megillah is coming to give me tools and a way how to go out of exile, but not only that, how am I going to live once I'm out in freedom? Now, throughout the Megillah, there's constant fight between Haman and Mordechai. Haman represents evil, Mordechai represents good, and there's constantly a fight between them. Haman is a descendant of Amalek. Amalek is a nation that came to attack Israel, but we're going to look a little bit deeper than the surface. Amalek is a klipa. Klipa is a negative energy or husk. The translation of klipa is a shield or a peel. If you have a beautiful, luscious orange, you want to eat the orange, you have to remove the peel. The peel is disgusting, it's bitter, it's covering over the fruit. If you're looking at the negative side of the klipa, then it's bitter, it's not edible. If you look at the positive side of the klipa, it's protecting the fruit. So there's a reason why Hashem created a klipa in the world. A lot of people say, why did Hashem create this headache? Because there's a reason for that. Originally the klipa came to protect, not to destroy. But nevertheless, the darkness in the world right now is so deep that and strong that the klipa is going against us. So Amalek, ignore now the fact that he's a nation. Amalek is a klipa. And there are many different types of klipot that we deal with. Each klipa has a certain energy that operates against me in different ways and causes distractions in my life and challenges in my life. We just now read about the Jews going out of Mitzrayim. Who was the king of Mitzrayim? It was Paro. So we're imagining a king like in the Ten Commandments with Yul Brynner. This is not the Paro that we know of. I don't know why they chose Paro to be bold and this Paro, according to the Talmud, was this big. He was Amma, one Amma long. He was like a little creature, like a dwarf. And nevertheless, Paro, okay, he has a physical image, but Paro is representing a certain klipa, a certain energy that puts me into slavery. Paro, if you take the word Paro and you write it down, in Hebrew it's Pei Resh Ayin Hey. Like I said before, English never works well. In Hebrew, write it down in Hebrew, it's Pei Resh Ayin Hey, Paro. If you switch the order of the letters, it gives you a word in Hebrew that you read as Hafra'ah. Hafra'ah is something that disturbs you, something that distracts you. Hafra'ah is a distraction. Try to notice how many times a day you're being distracted. From your WhatsApp, from your Gmail, from your phone, from the door ringing, from phone calls, from how many distractions you have a day. How many things are constantly taking your concentration. Most people can't even focus for more than 2 or 3 minutes. Most people are so not productive in anything that they do because constantly there's distractions. This is Paro in your life. So it makes you a slave to him because you are distracted to the WhatsApp. How many times a day you check your WhatsApp? 500 times. Every ding ding you check it. Like as if it's so important to see what so-and-so sent you, a circle with a tongue out, or a circle with an eye like that. I mean, that's how pathetic we became. That I'm being distracted by all sorts of emojis. Yeah? 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 So the...
Someone in our group said it's like hieroglyphics. Like in Egypt they use the pictures, and now
Yeah,
the picture. It's the same.
100%. These emojis, however you call them, this is a root. It's rooted in paro. It's a distraction, and this is a distraction out of many. An average individual checks their email 500 times a day. Why do you need to check your emails 500 times a day? I mean, 40 years ago, how many times you checked the PO box? Once a day when the mailman came. You knew the mailman coming is too. I need to check the mailbox. I mean, if you're in love and you're waiting for the love letter from your long-lost boyfriend, then you check the mailbox every 2 minutes. But you know the mailman is coming too. Why do you check the mailbox so often? Same thing with your email. People tell me, I emailed you a few hours ago. You didn't check the email. Well, okay, we're in line. I check my emails at night. You don't check it every 2 minutes? No. Why would I jump on the phone every time it goes bzzz? So this is one of the ways how a klipa works against me. So the klipa of Paro, don't imagine him like sitting as a king. It's a klipa. It's a certain energy that goes to, so to say, work against me to distract me. This is the klipa of Paro right now. Is to distract me. Is this a positive thing in my life or a negative thing in my life? Most people say it's a negative thing. No, it's not. It's a positive thing. If you go now to a gym and you want to work out, if you just sit on the bench like this, then something's going to happen? Nothing's going to happen. You have to push, pull, push, lift, up, down. You need resistance. If not, what are you doing in the gym? So you can go to the best gym in the world. If there's no force that is resisting or pushing, how are you going to work out? So this klipa was put in front of me that I will know to start resisting. Not to jump on the distraction. Let the distraction continue buzzing and don't jump on it. It's a certain exercise. Let's see how you can control yourself. You have a certain urge. There's now a lot of plates with goodies in front of me. The natural inclination is to go get a cookie right away. Whoa, let's keep your hand into your pocket right now. You don't have to reach your hand now to the cookie that's on the table. Let's see how much you can control yourself. So any type of klipa that is going to come to attack me in any type of a way, yes, it's a negative thing. But if you're looking at the root of it, it's not negative. It's coming to put me through some type of an exercise to see if I can control myself. If I can go over my limitation. If I can grow out of something that is negative and say, I'm not falling for this temptation right now. And that's really the essence of the idea of why Hashem put all these challenges in our life. Because if you just get everything for free, what's the point here? You get much more spiritual pleasure when you worked for something. The Zohar calls it Nehama Diksufa, bread of shame. The souls just got everything from the Kadosh Baruch Hu before this world. And Hashem says, I want you to earn what you're getting. And don't you have a much greater satisfaction that you worked hard and then you gained it? Person is overweight, they want to lose weight, they work hard for 90 days, they finally lose their weight, they have a lot of satisfaction. I did it. So Hashem says, I'm going to put all these powers against you. Now let's see how you grow. If you're spoiled and you right away go after the temptation, there's not going to be growth there. And we came here to grow. So essentially the klipa is not such a bad thing. When it's out of control, then it's already a bad thing. But nevertheless, there was a war between Haman and Mordechai. Haman is representing Amalek. He was a descendant of Amalek, Haman Ha'agagi. And Mordechai is the one who comes to fight it. Nothing changed for 2,000 years, 2,500 years. Nothing changed. Even today we have a war between Haman and there's a Mordechai and there's a fight between both. Now I need to know, to recognize through the Megillah, what is the Haman in my life, where is the Mordechai in my life, and what is the fight here. Now the whole Megillah starts with the word Vayehi b'yemei Achashverosh. At the time of the days of Achashverosh. Who Achashverosh? He was Achashverosh, the king of 120 countries. 127 countries, thank you. And in the fourth verse of the Megillah, it says that Achashverosh wanted to show off. רצה להראות את כבוד מלכותו. He wanted to show off. Here I have a lot of money. I have a lot of control. And he made a feast. Huge feast. And you know how long that feast was? 180 days. Here, sometimes we make like a weekend with a party, 3 days. After 3 days, everybody's already exhausted. 180 days party. And it says that the Achashverosh, בהראותו את עושר כבוד מלכותו. He wanted to show everybody, you want to see what's a party? I'll show you what's a party. And he made a big party. The Midrash says every time you'll find in the Tanakh the word Vayehi, this is coming from what's called Lashon Tsa'ar. It means there was some type of a sorrow there, or some type of a very bad thing going on. And you know what? There was a tsar. There was a sorrow there, that at the time of the Achashverosh, the nation of the Jews they were oppressed. They were not doing so well. And why? Because the power of Achashverosh was the evil power. And they were controlled by this power. Nevertheless, we have two heroes, I don't know if to call them heroes, but there are two characters in the Megillah, Achashverosh and Haman, very evil individuals. Spiritually, they are rooted in a very high spiritual place of impurity. Like I said before, there's always the place of Tumah and Tahara, purity and impurity. The same way that we have very high places of holiness, there's also very low places of Tumah, but they correspond to the same place. And Achashverosh and Haman are rooted in this very high place of impurity. And the Kabbalistic term to both Achashverosh and Haman is Achashverosh was the king, so he corresponds to the Malchut of Tum'ah, of impurity, and Haman corresponds to the Yesod of Tum'ah, to the foundation of Tum'ah, of impurity. That's what the Ari Kadosh explains. Now, it says that Achashverosh, what is really Achashverosh? Break the word, you can read it as Achiv Shel Rosh. It's a very long name. I mean, I wouldn't suggest to call a child Achashverosh. It wouldn't be so popular in school. But nevertheless, Achashverosh is one long word, but if you break it up, again, Achiv Shel Rosh, the brother of the head. Who's the head? The teachings of Kabbalah explain to us that the head is Nebuchadnezzar. He's the ruler who came to destroy to destroy Beit HaMikdash. And Achashverosh was his brother. Not physical brother, rather brother in the spiritual level. Nebuchadnezzar was called Rosh, the head, meaning the head of Tumah, of impurity. And Achashverosh was Achiv Shel Rosh, he was the brother. Meaning that Achashverosh was rooted in a very high place of impurity, that needless to say, that came down into the world and affected the world in a very negative way. Now, Achashverosh wanted to show how great he is. It says, Ikar tiferet gdulato. He wanted to show how powerful he is, how rich he is, how great he is. Then they decided to do this big feast. And what is he showing? He's showing a few things, and that's words coming out of the Megillah. Kavod, honor. Malchut, that he's the king, control. Osher, like power and richness and wealth. And most of it that he's controlling the world. I mean, we have a few of these now in our generation, that they want to show that I'm controlling the world. I will do whatever I want. We have a few world leaders that they want to show the entire world that I control it. The world will dance to my tune. But nevertheless, it says that when they made this huge feast, very interestingly, there's a few words in the Megillah that don't make much sense, but it says, La'asot mitot zahav v'kesef. They made beds out of gold and silver. This is hinting to us of a very severe sin of forbidden relations. The Torah has many different sins that are considered severe. One of them is forbidden relations. The only time that a man and woman are allowed to have relations is when they're married. Any type of other relations is called forbidden relations, and needless to say, considered one of the most severest sins in the eyes of Hashem. And the Torah goes in length to all the types of forbidden relations. This is called arayot. Unfortunately, in our generation, the majority of society are afflicted with this klipa of arayot, of the desire of being with somebody who's not spiritually, legally allowed to be with. This part in the Megillah is hinting about that. So we have a few things that the Megillah is already hinting to me. What was the nature of Achashverosh? Kavod, honor and respect. This is something that we have a very serious problem in our generation. People constantly want respect and honor. and if you don't get them, they don't get their honor and their respect, then they're going to start pushing the people. Then we have Malchut is control. Malchut is the kingdom. Osher, the running after greed and power and money. And needless to say, the forbidden relations. Now, we are a creature that I mentioned so many times. We are a creature that's constantly looking for pleasures. And that's how we were created. And each and every one of us, it's not that one person doesn't have that. Everybody has this desire to be pleasured. One person, their pleasure is food. Another person, their pleasure is going to a museum. Another person, their pleasure is to have beautiful clothes on. These are normal pleasures. Some pleasures are not permitted. But nevertheless, we're constantly running after pleasures. And if I don't have some type of happiness going on in the depth of my soul, then I would look for instant gratifications. That's why I said some people, their pleasure is food. Life is a little bit bitter, so there'll be something in their mouth all the time. And chas v'shalom, don't think I'm trying to insult anybody. I'm just saying how these pleasures come to me. Some person, their pleasure will be to watch videos all day long. Another person will be another thing. But constantly we're looking for pleasure. And one way or another, sometimes the pleasures are permitted, food is permitted, but when you eat 17 cookies, then that's already beyond what your body needs. Eat one with a cup of coffee. You don't have to have 17 cookies or a whole chocolate bar. Eat a little piece of it. But nevertheless, some of the pleasures are permitted, but the problem is a lot of people go after pleasures that are not permitted. And nevertheless, we're constantly running after these pleasures. And I need to know where are these pleasures coming from. And then I have to choose if the pleasure is coming from something holy or if the pleasure is coming from something unholy. Some people, believe it or not, they get pleasure from sitting in a shiur Torah like this. Hypes them up. They learn Torah. Sometimes I see people in a class. You always see this direction. I once need to sit and put a camera to this direction. And that would be very entertaining to see the fingers in the ears and the nose and the ones on the phone and the ones that are like, nodding every 2 minutes but nodding the wrong direction. And so I always have a kick of looking to this direction, especially when I do certain things. Then I see the reactions on the faces. If you remember, a few months ago we had a class here that we learned about the hands, the lines in the hands and the lines in the forehead, and every time I was giving it, everybody was like so it's funny to see this direction. When I always share my personal story, then I explain how there's a famous quote in the Midrash that when the baby's in the mother's womb, it's sitting in the stomach, and an angel is teaching the baby Torah, and when the baby comes out, the angel hits the baby on his mouth and makes him forget the entire Torah, and that's why we have this little mark here on the lip. Every time, every lecture that I say that, half the people in the crowd are like, oh, yeah. So, it's just very funny to see this direction, especially the ones that are like, so, but, why am I saying that? Sometimes I see people in a lecture like that. They're like recording every word that I say and analyzing it as I'm saying it, and they're getting such pleasure from the class. Usually it's like 1 or 2 out of 50. Usually, to get the attention is not so easy. But it's funny, I teach every day. We have a yeshiva, we have a women's center. I see all the different reactions. Some people, believe it or not, I see they're like mesmerized. So some people get their ta'anug, their pleasure, from a shiur Torah. Some people will get their pleasure from cooking a meal and seeing how everybody's enjoying the meal on Shabbat. And so I need to know if the pleasure is coming from Kedusha, from something holy, or if the pleasure is coming from something unholy. Now it's really up to me to choose where I'm taking my pleasures from. Because I can take pleasures only from things that are holy. And I will still get the dose of Kedusha and pleasure. The problem starts is there is a negative force operating against me. And it's called klipa. The klipa gets power when I'm enjoying, when I'm getting pleasure from the junk that it's feeding me. So if I get pleasure from a shiur Torah, good. If I get pleasure from the falseness of what the klipa is giving me, then I'm giving the klipa power. I'm feeding it. So I have to be very careful from where I'm taking my pleasure. Because if I take my pleasure from something that is wrong or negative or impure, then I'm feeding it. Now what happens? I'm right away back to get the next one. So on a very small level, I take one cookie. It's good to enjoy a cookie. There's nothing wrong with the cookie. But if you're already reaching out to the second one, you're going back. You're going back to the same pleasure. Now the third cookie will come very fast, and the fourth, and until you get the slap on your hand, until somebody tells you hello, relax. But nevertheless, the klipa is getting power when I'm taking pleasure from his supply. Now, we have 4 things that it says in the Megillah that I have to be very careful from. That's what the Achashverosh wanted to show us. The first one was mammon, power, money, kavod, honor and respect, ge'ava, pride, and arayot. And arayot is forbidden relations. These are the 4 things that the Yetzer Hara is constantly trying to pull me down into. And all of them, by the way, will give me pleasure. Money will give me pleasure, honor will give me pleasure, pride will give me pleasure, and needless to say, the forbidden relations will give me pleasure. I have to be very careful that I'm not falling into that trap of the Yetzer Hara. If I fall that's where the Yetzer Hara gets me. Now, Haman came to Achashverosh and he says, listen, I want to get to this nation. I want to destroy them. So he goes to Achashverosh and he tells him, let's make a feast. And in the feast, that's how we're going to control them. So Achashverosh says, okay, great idea. I'm going to force them all to come to the meal. So Haman says, listen, whoa. Don't just force them so fast. Haman was a very smart individual. He had a lot of power in kishuf, in sorcery, and he knew a lot of Torah, and he saw things in the world above. He was able to see when things are good for us, when things are not good for us, and he knew that if we are going to be forced to come to the meal, he learned a little bit of Torah. And the Torah says a person who's forced, anus, rachman apatre. The Kadosh Baruch Hu exempts him. If you're forced to do something, you can't be held accountable, held responsible. It's called anus. If you are anus, then listen, I was forced. So Haman says, no, you can't force them to come to the meal. Because then when we make them sin in the meal, their God is not going to go against them. They're not going to go hold them against them. You have to make them want to come to the feast. So Achashverosh says, good thinking, Haman. How are we going to do that? Nevertheless, they tricked him and advertised it in such a way that everybody willingly came to the meal. Now, and it says there, you don't have to. I'm only inviting you for 6 months on Kosherika for free. You don't have to come. I mean, you're just going to miss all the amazing activities, but it's not an obligation. You don't have to come. So they said to everybody, you can come, but you don't have to. Nevertheless, there was nothing wrong in this meal, by the way. The food was 100% kosher. It was OU or Badatz, whatever you go by, that's what it was. There was kashrut there. The wine was kosher. Everything was kosher. There was nothing, the dress code was modesty. But nevertheless, they enjoyed from the meal that was forbidden. And there's a big question in the Talmud. The students of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, they asked him, why did this meal was the one who brought all the gzera against? Because this is also important to know. The meal that we're talking about was in the 3rd year when Achashverosh was king. Only 9 years later came the story of Purim. 9 years between the meal and the Megillah. Jumps 9 years to the time when there was the gzera. Which means that 9 years Hashem waited patiently to see what we're going to do. So, during the meal, obviously was a big sin there, and the students of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, in the Talmud, they question, what did they do that it brought this gzera, this decree against them of annihilation? Did they sin? Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai answers, no, because they enjoyed from the meal of Achashverosh. They just enjoyed it. The food was kosher, the entertainment was kosher, everything was kosher. They had a mechitza. But nevertheless, they enjoyed the meal. That was their problem. We weren't supposed to enjoy it. Now, when I'm getting pleasure from the Yetzer Hara, when he's putting me in a corner, then I'm feeding the Yetzer Hara, then the Yetzer Hara will control me. You know how you push away the Yetzer Hara from you? Don't enjoy what he gives you. Even if you're forced, even if you don't have an option, at least don't enjoy it. There's a famous story that about 150 years ago, maybe more, in Russia, it was a very hard time for the Jews. And the Tsar there, he used to take the kids, the Jewish kids, into the army. They had to be in the army for 25 years. And they used to take kids when they were 11, 12 into the army. Needless to say, they weren't allowed to do anything Jewish. No Shabbat observant, no kosher, no tefillin. And it was a very hard time now at that generation. Well, there was a great tzaddik at the time, known as the Tzemach Tzedek. His first name is Menachem Mendel. He's the grandson of the Baal HaTanya. And he used to go to all these bases, and if it was Chanukah, bring them candles to light. Pesach would give them matzah to eat. And nevertheless, he wanted to keep this the flame of Judaism. One time they presented a question, and they told him, listen, they're feeding us pork. Now we can't eat pork, but that's what they're feeding us. They don't give us anything else but that. Should we die on Kiddush Hashem and say we're not touching it, just not to eat not kosher food, or what should we do? So he answered, listen, there's no obligation in the Torah to die on kosher food. Idol worship, yarek ve'al yavor. Get yourself killed, just don't do that. But for kosher food, you're so to say forced, eat the pork. But don't lick your fingers. Don't enjoy it. You have to eat it to survive. But don't, it's so good and yummy. Don't enjoy it. So when I'm enjoying what the Yetzer Hara is catering me, that's when I'm making him control me. So even if I have to do something, or I fall already to the situation that I'm forced, I already made the sin, don't derive so much pleasure from it. A lot of people say, if I'm already sinning, let me enjoy the whole thing. I'm already in the pot. At least enjoy it. Tomorrow I'll do tshuva. No, don't enjoy it, because then the Yetzer Hara has control over you. Anytime you're going to enjoy what the Yetzer Hara is feeding you, then that's how he's controlling you. Just remember that. Nevertheless, that's the problem when I fall completely into the klippah. Is most people, by the way, are trapped in the klippah. They don't even know how to get out of it. And I'm not talking about people who are completely secular, they don't even know what the Torah is. I'm talking about people who are observant. And they pray 3 times a day, and they eat kosher, and they observe Shabbat. They can still fall into the klippah and get stuck there. And to get out of the klippah, this is not an easy thing. And the majority of us are stuck in it. Some of us are stuck just the legs, some of us the whole body in. But nevertheless, I have to be very careful from what I'm receiving my hana'ah, from my pleasure. And the person can be either completely not observing the Torah, and he will fall into this klippah, the power of the klippah, but on the other hand can be a person who is observing the Torah and doing all the Torah says, but nevertheless, he still falls into all sorts of pleasures. And it can be simple things like food, and it can be simple things like a beautiful vacation or a beautiful fancy car, or then it can be also forbidden pleasures. And don't think for one second that if a person has a yarmulke and a beard that he doesn't fall into this to this territory of forbidden relations, of forbidden pleasures. Nevertheless, this is what Shlomo HaMelech says, Sheker achen vehevel hayofi. The lie of beauty and grace, that it looks all good, but it traps you into a place of nothingness, and then you're trapped there. And then you are controlled by it. Now, it says something very, very interesting, that in that feast, they had like a spatula of gold. You know, when you're drinking a punch, then you're taking like the spatula and you're pouring in the cup, the spatula? A ladle. So it says, lehashkot bekli zahav. They would pour things with a ladle of gold, vebekelim shonim, and all sorts of utensils. Now, sometimes you go to a beautiful wedding, And the plates are simple, or the utensils are simple. Sometimes you go to a wedding or to a beautiful vacation, and the plates are all beautiful china, and just right now, I don't know if to say Baruch Hashem, but I do fly a lot. I don't know if to say Baruch Hashem I fly a lot, but I do fly a lot, so I have a lot of miles. And I always fly with El Al, because these miles, every third flight that I do, I get almost a free flight. And not only that, I'm always bumped up to better service. I always I have a very high status with El Al from all the miles, so I always can take 2 suitcases. I can take 35 kilos, not 23 kilos, and my wife is very happy with me coming with 35 kilos on each hand, with a lot of presents. But nevertheless, it comes with a lot of goodies. So sometimes I get bumped up. Not too long ago I was flying, and they told me there's a free seat in business class. Do you want to be bumped up? Upscaled, or however you call it, or upgraded? And it was very tempting. This is a perfect example how the Yetzer Hara knows how to get some pleasure out of you in a very subtle way. And the person tells me, do you want to be bumped up to business class? We have a free seat. And I was like, is it for free? Yeah. He goes, you have a very high status. And very quickly, my Haman was saying, yeah, go in business class. Why not? Get to stretch real nice, and go first on the plane. And right away, my Mordechai was saying, don't go on first class, on this business class. Well, what's wrong with the seat they give you in the back? Well, you need to be indulged and pleasured on a nice, comfortable seat. And you need everybody to see you in business class. And so this is in a very refined way. Why do you need this pleasure right now? This pleasure is going to give you anything? Sit on a regular seat. You're not. You don't have to sit in business class. But nevertheless, one of the things that was very dominating in the decision, everywhere I go, people recognize me. Yesterday I was sitting in a restaurant with a couple friends. It was on the main street. Every 2 minutes somebody walks into the restaurant and, hey, Rabbi Anava, takes a selfie, shakes my hand. So everywhere I go, people know me. I can't pick my nose in public. And I was like, all I need now is to sit on business class, and people are like, oh, look at him, sitting in business class. Now he's going and fundraising for his yeshiva. I know where the money is going to business class. So nevertheless, my answer was no, I'll find where I sit. And the person couldn't understand. You're giving up a seat in business class. But this is one example how, like, sometimes I was thinking, do I really need this extra pleasure right now? I told you many times I have a weakness for cars. When I was not observant, cars, I was like, my wife was always very happy. In the early years when we used to live in America and we used to go on vacations, we used to choose to go to South Florida on vacations. Because there's kosher restaurants, there's shuls, it's very easy to have a vacation there. The only problem with South Florida is that there's a lot of fancy cars there. And every 2 blocks I would see a Lamborghini, started drilling over the car. My wife was always very happy. She was like, other men, they look at women. You look at cars. So I have a very soft spot for cars. If you want to get me on if somebody wants to convince me with something, take me on a ride in a nice car. A few months ago, I was here on one of the trips, and I was saying that at the end of the lecture, one of the guys came up and says, "Listen, you just said you love nice cars. You want to take a ride in my car?" And I was like, "Which one is your car?" So he points out on this beautiful M12 BMW, and I'm like, and again came this. I'm like, no, I don't need to drive on the park. What is it called? The Cross Island Parkway, 120 miles an hour. No, it's okay. I'll say no for this pleasure. But nevertheless, this is again, why am I saying that? Because of all the traveling, then I always rent from the same company. So I have a lot of miles even in the car rentals. They always upgrade me. Do you want this beautiful this car, that car? And I'm like, why are you saying that? I'm very happy with this Hyundai that I reserved. Why are you offering me now the Jaguar? Now that I landed, literally now, in JFK, he tells me, if you want, we have a brand new Jaguar SUV. I'll give it to you for no extra cost. I'm like, really? Can I see it? I see this beautiful Jaguar, brand new, 45 miles from the dealer to the lot. And he's like, I'll give it to you, I'll upgrade you. And I'm like, no, I'll stay with what I took. So I don't even know how I got to the cars, but the point is that even sometimes I know how I got to the cars. When you're sitting when you're flying, I don't know how it is in other airlines, but in El Al at least, when you sit in flying coach, they give you everything is plastic. If you fly premium or business, they actually give you silver cutlery. Instead of plastic utensils. Not too long ago, I was with my daughter. We were bumped up to premium, and then for my daughter, she was like, please, 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 let's go there. They have these these screens this big, and I'm like, okay, fine. So suddenly they give me the food, and I'm like, hey, it's metal. It's not like the plastic that breaks the second you're trying to, the food first of all comes it can go through nuclear disasters. The food, how it's covered. It's like you need to. The problem is the table is this big, and you're trying to rip it, and if you rip it, you give an elbow to the one next to you. So, nevertheless, I noticed, wow, look at that! You in premium, you get beautiful cutlery. Why am I saying that? Because in the feast that Achashverosh did, it says that the ladles were from gold, the kelim shonim, and all sorts of different utensils. What is this kelim? Achashverosh wanted, of course, to take over control, so we have to now fast forward 2,500 years. Also in our generation, these kelim, kli is a tool. The Yetzer Hara has many, many, many tools. And it says kelim yafim, beautiful tools. You have an iPhone X, it's a beautiful tool of the Yetzer Hara to distract you. And then you have a 85-inch plasma, that the new ones that are like a little bit, how do you call it? They're curved. I don't even know. I don't even know what they have already. But these are these kelim yafim. The Yetzer Hara has a lot of kelim yafim. Kli is a tool or a vessel, and exactly all the examples I just gave you. A nicer seat in business class, nicer car. When you're saying, okay, what's the big deal? So I'll sit in a nice car. What's the big deal? So an average person will say, what's the big deal? But when you're really on a quest of, I want to refine myself, and I want to get pleasure from the real things. I don't want to get fake pleasures. I don't want to get instant gratification. I want to get hana'ah, ta'anug, from kedusha, not from nonsense. Now, if I give in to something as small as an upgrade seat, I know for some people it might be big. Some people look at me like, are you out of your mind? You're giving up a seat in business class for a 12-hour flight? I see it that I don't want this pleasure right now, because the pleasure will be for 12 hours, and you know how the mind works, but you need to rest. You're going on a long tour now. You have 3 lectures every day, and it's stressful, and you need to sleep nice and comfortable. The Yetzer Hara knows how to really manipulate you. But the point I'm trying to work, because not every person is at the same level, is that the second that you feed off certain pleasures in this world that the Yetzer Hara is catering to you, just know that he grabs you. And he grabs you, and once he has the control over you, then you're going to have a problem. Because then he's going to start giving you these pleasures that are already bad and that are forbidden. Now I'm under the control of the klipa. So a smart person will say, now we'll call that person a holier person. Holy, again, the words in English never make sense. Holy in English, in Hebrew, is kadosh. Kadosh means separated. I want to be separated. I want to be in the realm of kedusha, of holiness. I don't want to be in the realm of impurity. And I know it sounds a little bit fanatic and a little bit crazy, but I choose, and that's how I see it, I segregate myself from these little pleasures. You know why? Because once the Yetzer Hara has me in, he has the foot through the door, that's it, he's in the system already. So today it's an upgrade for a nice Jaguar when I rent it. Tomorrow it's going to be already some type of pleasure that has the taste of something that is not good. So I got to be very careful how Achashverosh is catering me. Now, I'll tell you what's the problem. A lot of people tell me, listen, you are really fanatic. If I'm going to get bumped to business class, I'm going to jump on it in a second. You are out of your mind. And I'll take that beautiful Jaguar SUV as the car, especially that it's free. So a lot of people say, listen, you're a little bit fanatic. So the problem is, if I fall to the pleasure of the honor and the respect and the control of the klipa. This is all these words that we read in the parasha. The osher, the richness, the power, the money, the kavod. Oh, you know what it is? It's very below respect. The business class, they let you go in first. And they let you go out first. That's kavod. I see the people walking out of business class like, okay, so you have a lot of miles and you got a business class ticket. Big deal. But you see them walking off like, excuse me, sir, I was here first. Okay, this is the kavod. A lot of people, they get a lot of kick out of this honor and respect. Nevertheless, if I already fell into it, this is not what causes the damage. Or the term, the teachings of Kabbalah uses is kilkul, when I break something. The nefilah, the falling into the trap of the klipa, doesn't cause the kilkul. So a lot of people say, oh, I already fell into it, now I'm doomed. No, it didn't cause a problem. What causes the kilkul, the damage, that I agree that this is the reality. That I agree that this is the emet. This is not the emet. The true pleasure is not a nice leather seat, on a reclining seat, or whatever, or a beautiful restaurant. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's not the emet. The real emet, the truth, is only the Kadosh Baruch Hu, only the Torah, only the mitzvot. That's the emet. If I start realizing the opposite, and I'm thinking, no, that's the truth, then I'm already in a problem. And this is exactly what Achashverosh and Haman wanted to do. They wanted to distort the truth of the vision, how the Jews saw the reality. And the point to take from that, one of the many, is that I constantly will fall to the trap of the klipa. Don't think for 1 second that you are immune to the klipa. He will come to you in many different ways, 20 times an hour. And in ways that you will never even think that this is a trap of the klipa. I already have my senses very, very sharp. And when this guy in the counter told me I can bump you up to this Jaguar SUV for free, right away, ding, 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 the lights are going off, because in my normal me, yes, is it coming with a GPS too? Like, so, and he tried to sweeten it. He told me it has like the seats are warming up, and who cares what I need my tuchas to be warm. So, and the Yetzirah, of course, is like, listen, it's very cold. I looked in the forecast. It's going to be 28 degrees. You need your tuchas to be warm. But the point is that I right away see, no. This is the trap of the Yetzirah. Here, just taste a little bit. You know how they do in the supermarkets? They give you these tasting. Just taste a little bit. That one is for free. There's always going to be the one who's standing there like, I'm tasting the examples. So the Yetzirah is giving you these examples. I need to understand that where the Yetzirah is waiting for me. But if I already fell in there, I have to understand that was also one of the wills of the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Because if Hashem already brought you down to a very low place, is because in there is hidden already a godly spark that you need to elevate. And if I already fell into a place of impurity, or a place of filth, or a sin, Hashem says, down there is trapped a godly spark, and you need to take it out. That's where you can light up something so dark. So the Yetzirah, once I'm already down, will start telling me, you are a loser, you are no good for nothing, you are a failure, look at you, a pathetic excuse, look at yourself. Then I start falling into sadness and depression and all sorts of feelings of being literally not successful. But nevertheless, when I already fell, I have to understand that no, if already Hashem put me in a very bad situation, you use your own imagination, what's this bad situation? It's to understand that there has to be a godly spark there, and I'm the one who was selected to go in, to get dirty, and to pull this godly light, revealing this godly spark. And this is what's called Yitron ha'or min ha'choshech, the advantage of the light that comes from darkness. The explanation to that, if you go now in mid-daylight and the sun is out and you come out with a candle, you think the light of the candle is making any difference? You don't even see the light of the candle. But take that same candle into a dark basement with no windows, suddenly that little bit of light, the darkness, there's no darkness anymore. So Hashem puts you in a place of darkness, and He says, all you need is a little bit of light. You light up a little bit the place, then you won already the darkness. So I have to understand that everything is eventually, if you're looking at it, even the klipa is something good. But nevertheless, just to move a little bit forward, We know that this was considered at the time they were when they were in Persia. It's called Galut Bavel. Bavel has the very similar letters if you switch it around to a word, say Levav. Bavel and Levav. Same letters, just the other way around. What's Levav? Also, you're right, it's the heart, but where do we find the word Levav? When we say Shema Yisrael. Bechol Levavcha. You have to serve Hashem with all your heart. What does our sages explain? What does it mean with all your heart? B'shtei yetzarecha. With your Yetzer Tov and your Yetzer Hara. Now, the Yetzer Hara is going to be the one who's bringing you into this exile of Bavel. And when I have to serve Hashem with all my heart, the Yetzer Hara doesn't give me pleasure. I have to understand that even the pleasure that the Yetzer Hara gave me, it was still decided by Hashem that it will be pleasurable. For example, now the Yetzer Hara is trying to get me to eat this cookie. Okay? But who made the cookie tasty? Hashem. Hashem made the cookie tasty. Anything that you would look at, that the Yetzer Hara is trying to manipulate, and I get some type of pleasure, nevertheless, it's the Kadosh Baruch Hu designed that that thing will be pleasurable. So the way to looking at it, that I can still take it, don't take the pleasure out of it, but understand that originally, and to the essence of it, the Kadosh Baruch Hu is the one who designed it like that. So I have to understand that even in the bad, even in the pleasure that I'm taking from something that is bad, not that I'm giving you now a permission to do something that is not permissible, but nevertheless, the Kadosh Baruch Hu is the one who designed it. And why do I need to know that? To understand that even in the bad things in the world, Enod milvado, there's nothing else but the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Even in something that is bad, the Kadosh Baruch Hu is still there. And He still made it like that. So the point to take from that is because sometimes I do fail, and what do I feel? That I'm disconnected from Hashem. Now Hashem is upset. Now Hashem is disappointed. Now Hashem doesn't want to see me. Now I broke Hashem's heart. But nevertheless, even when I fail, even when I fall to the lowest of lowest, Hashem is still involved, and Hashem is still says, no, we're still connected any way you're looking at it. And when you're looking at the whole idea, we have to understand that Haman and Achashverosh are the ones who are controlling the evil in the story. Now, anything that we want to understand, I said that so many times, that when I want to understand something, I have to go to the source. And the source is the Torah. If you don't understand anything in this world, go to the source. Everything is in the Torah. Even an iPhone X you can find in the Torah. Somehow. I don't know where, but you'll find it there. But nevertheless, everything is in the Torah. Where do we find Haman in the Torah? In the beginning of the Torah, in Sefer Bereshit, it says a verse, Hamina etz asher tziviticha achalta mimeno? From the tree that I told you not to eat, did you eat from that? That's when Hashem told Adam HaRishon when he ate from the tree of knowledge. So it doesn't sound the same, but it's the same letters. Haman is Hey Mem Nun, and Hamin Ha'etz, Hamin Hey Mem Nun. From the tree that I told you not to touch, that's what you touched. All the problems that we have up until today is because it's a dat. Because one sin, one person made a mistake, up until today, millions of people are paying for that. All the kitrug, all the persecution against us, mankind, is because of this etzadat. And Haman and Achashverosh, they knew when to push the persecution. I'm sure you have seen it sometimes, at least if not maybe once or maybe a million times with kids, that two kids, they fight, and then one wants the other one to get in trouble, so the one who wants the other one to get in trouble starts going to you, and you know what he did? You know what he said? Mm-hmm. And he did that. And why? Because he knows that now you're going to get upset. It's the one that he's fighting with. It's kind of like instigating. And you see that between brothers, you see it in school, whatever it is, and you sometimes also see it with adults, that one is starting, they know that person A can now punish severely person B, so they go and this is what Haman and Achashverosh did. They knew when is the good time to push, that we're not in such a great situation. And they knew how to push. They knew when to do the kitrug. And Aman told Achashverosh, you know, go do this meal. And Achashverosh says, listen, I don't want to mess with these guys. I don't like them more than you don't like them. But their God, I don't want to mess with him. Because their God allows their enemies to strike them, but then he punishes the enemy. I don't want to mess now with this God. So Aman says, listen, I looked in my app. I have a Shamaim app, and I saw right now that their God is sleeping. And if he's sleeping, then now's the time to strike them. But Aman wasn't that sharp. He still didn't read Tehillim, where it says that Hashem lo yanum velo yishan. Hashem doesn't have a body. Hashem doesn't go to sleep. But nevertheless, it says Balayla hi nadadash nat hamelech, in that night when the sleep of the king couldn't sleep. It's referring, of course, to Hashem. But Aman saw that Hashem is now numb or sleeping. And he says, now is the time to attack, so to say. But what's interesting here, if Aman and Achashverosh believed in Hashem, wouldn't they think, by saying, oh, now he's sleeping, now we can trick them, wouldn't they think or understand that Hashem doesn't really sleep? You're already believing in Hashem. Why would you think that Hashem is sleeping? So, we do know, they knew that there were all sorts of prophecies that the redemption is coming. Also Aman knew. The prophet Yirmiyahu said, you're going to go to exile for 70 years. So they also knew that the time of the redemption is coming. They knew it's about to be over. Now we know that right before the time of any redemption, there's a spiritual sleeping. This is called Sheina Ruchanit. Right before redemption. The term to it in Kabbalah is called Dormita. Dormita is when something is sleeping. So we know that right before right before redemption, there will be a state of sleeping, of numbness. And what happens is that the entire light of the Torah disappears. There's no revelation of the light of the Torah. Now, right before the Geulah, right before the redemption, you don't see barely any light of Torah. You see just a dark world. I'm not talking about that you see here a nice yeshiva and here a shul and here shurei Torah. That's not what I'm talking about. But in the world itself, you barely see any kedusha. Barely. Right before the time of Geulah, there's always going to be a state of sleeping. Why? To prepare the power of renewity. Because when the redemption comes, it's a new power, a new energy. And the force of kedusha goes to sleep, so to say, to renew itself, so it can now apply to the time of redemption. And the problem is that at that point, the nation of Israel is in danger. Because, so to say, there's no supervision from the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And we see in our generation how our nation is in severe danger. And I'm not talking necessarily about physical danger. That you can already see with your own eyes. But also spiritual danger. And we can't ignore the reality. I'm only here for a couple of days. All I'm hearing, here in New York, all the youth are on drugs. People are going completely away from the Torah. I'm not going to get into too many descriptions because it's not going to be so appropriate. But all that I hear in the last couple of days are problems in our generation, and not from secular people, in the religious communities. That Hashem Yerachem were the things that what I hear all day long. This is danger. We are all under danger. Not too long ago in one of my trips, Hashem Yerachem, I shouldn't even say that, but just to make the point, I was in some community, a very observant community. For whatever reason, I must look like a wall. Everybody comes to talk to me. Everywhere I go, listen, Rabbi, I have something to, like as if they want to confess, like I look like the kotel or somebody. But nevertheless, everywhere I go, people talk to me. And I was a whole weekend in this community, and the conclusion from this weekend in the community, Hashem should forgive me for saying that out loud, everybody's cheating on each other. She's with him with him, him with her, he's with her, the whole weekend, that's what I'm hearing. And this is an observant community. I was like, Hashem Yerachem, what's going on here? So we are under severe danger because we see how Amalek, what is the nature of Amalek? That he comes to the weak ones. The ones that are weak. And we're all weak. We're tired already from this exile. We're tired from running after money. We're tired of running after educating our kids. All the fighting between communities and the sinat chinam. Everybody's tired already. Trust me, everybody's like, I got the point. Now is when Amalek is coming and starting biting when you're weak. The Yetzer Hara is not going to come to you when you're strong. It's coming to you at the end of the day when you're weak. If you notice, the Yetzer Hara is much stronger at night than in the morning. You're already weak, you're already died, I'm awake already for 18 hours. Now, I want to go to sleep now. You know where you see it the most? I always say to people, you want to sleep well, you want to wake up well, you want to annihilate 90% of your problems, say Kriyat Shema L'Mitah. And where's the biggest Yetzer Hara? Kriyat Shema L'Mitah. Who says Kriyat Shema L'Mitah? You drop on the bed like the Eiffel Tower now, just collapsed. Before the Kriyat, I'll say in a few minutes, wake me up. My wife tells me, wake me up in a few minutes to say Shema. I'll wake you up in the morning already. So you have to say it now or you don't say it. And most people don't say it. It's not because they're mean. Because it's the end of the day and the Yetzer Hara is like, yeah, really, I'm going to let you say Kriyat Shema L'Mitah right now. Really, 10 minutes now of a prayer. So the Yetzer Hara is waiting for you when you're weak to catch you when you're weak. So you just have to constantly be on guard. But nevertheless, the problem is that at the time, right before the redemption, when there's a siluka or the removement of the light, our nation is in danger. And the danger can be physical, which is, and also spiritual. We're in a very, very, very gentle time, very sensitive time. And a lot of people, they're trying to kind of sugarcoat things and to brush problems off under the rug. You can't do that. We have to face the reality, and the reality is that the youth is in a severe danger, and people around us, and this is a spiritual danger, and we can't ignore that. We have to know exactly what we're up to. Now, this brings, of course, the big question, why do we have to go through all these challenges? Everybody has a challenge. There's no such a thing that somebody in this room or any person in this planet that can raise their hand and says, no, I'm totally fine. Life is smooth as it could be. Everybody has challenges, and most people, they come in pairs. And most people have 10 challenges at the same time. And you use your own imagination. One is financial, one is health, one is marital problems, and some it's all together. But why do we have to go through so many challenges? The reason why we have to go through so many challenges is not because you're mean, and not because you're bad, and not because what people sometimes say, Hashem is punishing me. Hashem is preparing us to be able to receive this godly light that's about to be revealed. And that's the only way to prepare us. The only reason why you're going through challenges is to prepare you that when this godly light will shine very soon, you'll be prepared. And if you don't go through these challenges, how are you going to be ready to be prepared to receive this light? I know in our physical mind it doesn't necessarily make sense. Why do I have to go through a challenge in order to see a godly revelation? But nevertheless, this is what we need to go through. This is a topic for a whole class in itself. Why specifically the challenge prepares me for the godly revelation? But you know when you really see the hand of Hashem is when in the challenge you'll get somehow the miraculous power to overpower the challenge. And sometimes you see very clearly the hand of Hashem, how He totally intervened and saved the day. That's really why Hashem wants you to go through the challenge, that you can look for the Kedusha, the godly revelation, in the darkness, and recognize that Hashem is in control. But nevertheless, I have to go through challenges only to be prepared for this godly light. And very soon Mashiach is going to come. He's going to turn the switch on, and this huge, bright, amazing godly light will shine around the world, that our sages say that the wicked people will be destroyed from this light, and the tzaddikim, the righteous people, will benefit from this light. We don't even know what it means, this light. People imagine, I know you're looking at the picture there and you're seeing a light. This is not the light that we're referring to. People are imagining, I know it's easy to relate to a light, okay, a light bulb. This is not the light that we're talking about. Light in Hebrew is or. Or means chokhmah. We're going to be revealed the wisdom of Hashem. V'yada de'a haaretz et Hashem. Our eyes are going to open, and I'm going to see godliness everywhere. I'm going to see light. And we call it light. In Hebrew it's called he'ara. The wisdom of Hashem is just going to be accessible to all of us. We're going to be these tzaddikim. We're going to be able to see how Hashem enlivens and sustains the world. But nevertheless, I have to have the vessel to see such a thing. Can you imagine the redemption coming and I'm not prepared and I have to go into the dark room because the light is blinding me? That, what do you think is going to happen when this light is going to be revealed? If you don't have the kli, the vessel, to see the light, you're not going to be able to. And then you don't benefit from this godly light that's going to be revealed. So right now is the time to prepare it. So we are crying and whining and complaining about all these challenges, but this is the treadmill that will allow me very soon that when the light will be revealed, that I will be able to have the right capacity to see it. And again, don't imagine, I know this picture is very confusing, don't imagine a light. That's a light bulb. It's not going to come in a form of a light. Take the word in Hebrew, light is or. Or means chokhmah. Chokhmah is wisdom. Hashem is going to reveal His wisdom. Right now I don't see His wisdom. Now all I see is physical objects. But the physical objects will disappear, and I will see the godly power, the energy of God, how He enlivens everything, how everything works. We're going to be able to see that in such a profound way that it's our being is going to explode of pleasure just to understand the wisdom of the Kadosh Baruch Hu. We're going to be like Adam and Chava. But I have to have some type of a preparation for that. So just imagine they received the Torah after being 210 years in Egypt. Now, we just read Parashat Yitro. I mean, nobody really relates with what was happening there. People think it was a mountain and about a bunch of cows walking around and some flashlights and Moshe Rabbeinu go. You can't even imagine in your wildest dream what it looked like in Matan Torah. And our human mind will not even fathom what happened in Matan Torah. Seeing this scene, this is nothing compared to what we're going to see very soon when Mashiach comes. They had to be 210 years in exile to become worthy of seeing it. 80% didn't go out of Mitzrayim. They weren't worthy. They didn't have the capacity to sustain such a thing. We are 2,000 years in exile. I shouldn't even say 2,000 years. It's exactly 1,950 years. Chas v'shalom, there should be another 50 years. 1,950 years we are in exile. Just imagine what a kli, what a capacity we're building to see this revelation very soon when Mashiach is going to come. And unfortunately, that doesn't mean that everybody will survive and sustain it. So we got to understand that a lot of the hardship that we're going through now, yes, it's hard right now, but it's building the capacity or the vessel to be able to sustain this godly revelation. Now, quickly, just so we can continue a little bit, when we're looking at the entire thing that happened, the entire decree, the Gzerah of Haman was decided on the 13th day of the month of Nisan. That's when it was decided. On the 14th day of the month of Nisan, Yudalet Nisan, that's when they came out. They had like these little igrot, these little posters. You know, you walk sometimes in the supermarket, there's a poster, this rabbi is coming to town, everybody's, ooh, the rabbi is coming to town. So they had these posters everywhere, and that was distributed, all these flowers and the posters, that was on the 14th day of Nisan. The next day, Mordechai goes to Esther and he tells her, listen, you got to pull some strings here. So on the 15th day of Nisan, Esther calls Achashverosh and Haman to the meal, and on that day they decide to kill Haman. Now, in the beginning, Esther didn't want to do it. Mordechai forced her to do it. He told her, you have to do it. But nevertheless, on the 15th day of Nisan, some people, by the way, on 15th day of Nisan, on Pesach, they celebrate the Yahrzeit of Haman. It's actually a very auspicious day, besides the fact that it's Pesach. Some people actually celebrate the Yahrzeit of Haman. On that day is the power, I'm just telling you already a month and a half in advance, 2 months in advance, on that day, a lot of us suffering from fears. The Yetzer Hara is a master to make people afraid. One person is afraid how they're going to come up with the next payment of the mortgage. Another person is afraid how they're going to find their other half. Oh, you use your imagination. But the Yetzer Hara is a master of putting us under stress. And the stress is translated into fear. Fear and anxieties and so forth. On Tetvav Ben Nisan, this is the day when they killed Haman. This is the day when one can actually meditate on the fact that the power of Haman, what puts fear into my life, can be completely uprooted. And that's the day when they killed Haman. So just remember that. Now, another point to take from the Megillah, it says towards the end of the Megillah something very interesting, that the drinks in the feast was all kosher. The verse says, Vashtiya kadat, the beverages were kadat, they were very kosher, they had an OU on it, and it says, En ones lasot yad hamelech, lasot retzon ish ish. The wish of the master was to pleasure everybody. You want OU? I'll give you OU. You want okay? I'll give you okay. Whatever stamp you want, I'll put a stamp on it. Which was very nice of the king, that he wanted to make everything kosher. Mordechai was the mashgiach kashrut in the event there. But you want to take from that something very, very interesting. First of all, that's something that I've been saying a lot, that a lot of products in our generation, that they look kosher, they're not really kosher. To put a stamp on something, it's very, very easy. And unfortunately, there's a lot of corruptions and a lot of misleading going on with everything that has to do with hechsherim. And a lot of people, when they come to me and tell me I have this problem or I have that problem, the first thing that I tell them, check your level of kashrut. Oh no, but of course I observe the kosher. Well, you might observe it, you might think you're observing it. That doesn't mean that you're observing it the right way. Or it could be that you're missing a few details in the kashrut. And believe it or not, there's a lot of problems with kashrut. And even from simple things, even the other day I was reading a certain report that there's a certain candy that has a hechsher on it, and they found out that one of the products of this candy is made from pork fat, and it still had a kosher certification on it from a very reputable company. But later on, when they made more and more research, they found no, one of the products is made out of the fat of chazir, of a pork, and there's a certification, and tens of thousands of kids are eating it. So. And there's many things that are, I mean, I don't want to get into that now because that will totally sidetrack us off the topic. But I said so many times that, you know, even in New York, there's so many kosher restaurants. Maybe 8 years ago I gave once a lecture and I titled it, Is Kosher Restaurants Really Kosher? And I can tell you with not even, no even smallest doubt, half the restaurants in New York are not really kosher. People think they're kosher, but they're not really kosher. And you know, I'll give you the same example that one time I went to a certain restaurant in a certain town, and the person who took me there told me, no, because we couldn't eat there. And the person told me, no, the restaurant is very kosher, you have nothing to worry about. Okay, we come to the restaurant, sure enough, all the stickers, kasher, kemach yashan, kemach chadash, this, all these slogans, shomer Shabbat, madlik nerot Shabbat, all these stickers. I was like, wow, mashgiach tmidi. Wow, okay, we walk in and we sit in the restaurant. I go to the bathroom, I wash my hands, and out of curiosity I peek into the kitchen. And I go into the kitchen and I tell the person that was there, where's the mashgiach? He tells me, what? I told him the mashgiach. He's like, what's mashgiach? I told him, you know, is there a rabbi here who coming and look what's going on? Like, no. He said, there's no mashgiach here. He's like, no. So I told him, so who's in the kitchen? He says, me, and points out the rest of the guys. All of them are not Jewish. And I tell him, so who turns on the oven when you come here? He says to me proudly, me. I said, what do you mean you turn on the oven? There's no Jew here that comes and turns on the oven? No. This is, so what makes your restaurant kosher? So he pulls a bottle off the shelf and he shows me a OU. He says, but the product is kosher, but the restaurant is not kosher. And I tell him, so, you know, I'm going to order now an omelette. You check the eggs? He's like, what do you mean to check? The eggs are fresh. Why do I need to check the egg? And I tell him, and I'm going to go order now a salad. You're going to check the salad? No, we wash it very well. So, do you check the salad if there's any bugs on it? And later on, of course, I tell him, is this place open on Shabbat? No, we're not open on Shabbat. I only come here 3 hours before that to open and start everything to warm up. So when Shabbat goes out, everything is ready. So I said, so what makes you kosher? The fact that you bought a sticker for $25 and you put on the window that it says kosher, and people are eating there like there's no tomorrow. Now what happens is, innocent bypass walks through and looks inside, sees people with yarmulkes and beards, and they're eating there, I'll eat there too. And everybody thinks the place is kosher. Once a year, I called, on the certification was the name of the rabbi, I called him. Once a year, the rabbi comes, probably collects a nice check, and the place is kosher. So we have to be very, very particular with our kosher diet. That's one of the biggest problems of our generation, that the products, when they're not kosher, or however it's done, it's affecting our soul in a very, very profound way. And interestingly, in the Megillah, it's talking about how Achashverosh was like, listen, I'm going to make it look very, very kosher. And in our generation, other places make things look very kosher. Just yesterday, I was sitting with the person where I'm staying, and he was asking me some questions in halakha. And he told me that there was a group of people that they got some deal with some company that goes on cruises. Now, it's not kosherika. Yeah. So I was shocked. So it's a company that they offer packages for cruises, and they say it's kosher. Now what happens is, it's not a kosher cruise, but they buy you kosher food packages, and there's a separation, whatever, but you don't pay an exorbitant amount what you would pay a kosher cruise. You pay a quarter. So he started asking me halakha questions. Are they allowed to take the packaged food and put it in their oven and warm it? Are they allowed to do this? Are they allowed to do that? 90% of the questions, no, you're not allowed to do that. Who says it's kosher? The fact that the food was prepared kosher, now you're putting it in an unkosher oven, or you're doing this action or that action. So you tell me, so you want to tell me that a group of people, they're all observant, they're all on a cruise, and they're all eating food that is not kosher? And I tell them, sorry to tell you, yes. And you know, people are, either they're embarrassed, or they're lazy, or they don't want to really investigate, is this really kosher? Maybe, how do you know? Maybe it's not. People are very just naive, they just walk, just they see a stamp on it, that's it, Allah, no, it's kosher. You know, they caught not too long ago in Israel, trucks coming in from Gaza. And the security forces, they stop the trucks. They want to see it. There's bombs, terrorism. You know what they found on the trucks? Kosher meat. Kosher meat? What is there, slaughterhouses in Gaza? That the kosher meat is coming from Gaza? So all you do is they make a fake certification, and now they're selling it, and you think the store owners, they care. They get it for 20% less price. So we got to be very, very careful. I'll tell you what's the problem. One of the biggest pleasures that most people fail in is food. And there's a lot of pleasure in food. You want to eat a good restaurant, a good piece of steak, or whatever it is, but that's where the pleasure starts, when something that is permitted, and then it starts taking me to something that is not permitted. What else did we want to learn from the parasha? I told you before, from the Megillah, I told you before that the whole story of the Megillah is in me. I have a Haman in me, I have a Achashverosh in me, I have a Esther in me, all these characters are in me. Haman, there is a idea, a teaching, in the teachings of Kabbalah, that we all have a certain desire that I want to get something. This is called the Ratzon Lekabel. I constantly want to benefit from something. And this Ratzon Lekabel is making me very, very, very selfish. It's about me and not about anything else. I want to pleasure right now. I want to receive right now. And this is pumping up my ego. My ego is that you don't exist, only I exist. Everything else is nullified. I am the center of attention. This is the Haman in me. The Haman is the Ratzon Lekabel, the power that I want. I'm the number one. If you remember, he wanted to get all the respect. Remember, he came to Achashverosh and he told him, when Achashverosh told him, what should I do to the one that I want to show the most gratification? Oh, put him on the horse and ride him around the town. Haman was full of an ego. Haman was just a ball of ego. So the Haman in the story of Megillah, in me, Haman is my ego, is my desire to constantly receive and to get this gratification. On the other hand, the opposition of Haman is Mordechai. This is the Ratzon Latet, my desire to give. And I want to give you and you and you, and I want to do acts of kindness, and I want to do charity, and I'm more caring about you should be comfortable than me should be comfortable. This is the Mordechai. So there's always the power in me that is wanting to feed my own ego, and there's the power in me that says, no, it's not about me. It's about you right now. You coming first, not me. Then, if you remember, there's the famous horse. Mordechai was riding on the horse. Haman wanted to ride on the horse. In the end up, Mordechai was riding on the horse. The horse is an animal. The word in Hebrew for this type of animal is called behema. This is corresponding to my the behema, the animal in me, the nefesh habehemit in me, that wants to have the most control. But nevertheless, I need to always know how to put my animal under control, that I'm riding on the animal. You know, it says about Mashiach when he's going to come, either he's going to come on clouds of glory, or poor and riding on a donkey. Not too long ago I gave a lecture and somebody says, now I know why Mashiach is not coming. He's very unhappy with the vehicle they assigned to him. Why didn't they give him from the rental company, the Jaguar? Maybe he would come faster. Why Jaguar? But nevertheless, why does it say that he's going to be rochev al chamor? Chamor is maybe a donkey, but chamor comes from the word in Hebrew chomer, materialism. And we are sunk in this klipa of materialism. Very few people here have nothing to do with materialism. They live simple and they don't like materialism. But we're all sunk in this klipa of materialism. Mashiach is going to have to come and ride on it to completely break the materialism. That's what it means, that he's riding on the chomer. Nevertheless, I have a behema, an animal in me. This animal wants to eat, wants to procreate, wants to sleep, wants to enjoy. I have to take this Mordechai and ride on the behema to control it. So not jump on the cookie or not jump on the whatever I see with my desires. Then, of course, I have the king. This is the king in my life. The king is not necessarily in the stories referring to Hashem, rather it's referring to the laws of nature. Sometimes I understand that the laws of nature are Hashem, and in some cases I don't understand that the laws of nature is Hashem. I need to know how to and understand in my life how all the laws of my nature are Hashem. If you don't believe 24/7, 100% that everything is from Hashem, then you're not allowing this king in the story to apply in your life. Now it's very easy to say, of course I believe in Hashem. Yeah, but do you believe in Hashem when the challenge is very, very hard? Do you believe in Hashem when the situation is so hard, then you don't see any revelation here? The hastara is so strong. So I have to constantly understand that all the laws of nature in the world is coming from Hashem, and that's the king in the story. And of course, I have Esther in the story, and Esther is the desire and the need to get connected to the king. Some people, they don't have the desire to get connected to the king. Some people can't get enough of how to connect to the king. What else can I do to connect to the king? Esther is the mediator, the connection between me and the king. The more that I'm connected to the king, the more happy I am, the more healthy I am, the more successful I am. Now, one more thing that is very, very interesting, and I think we'll do a few more points and then we can finish and take some questions. There's at the end of the Megillah a very interesting verse. And it says, Ha'el, the God, Harav et rivenu, fights our battles, Dan et dinenu, he judges our din. And there's a beautiful explanation that there's a certain klipa, that the name of the klipa is called Riv. Reish Yud Bet. Riv is a disagreement, or argument, or fight. But this klipa that is called Riv, we know of many different klipot. This klipa, besides how it sounds, Riv, an argument, but it has the power of shichecha, of forgetting. And how many times you sat in a class and everything made sense? 2 hours later, what was he talking about? In the beginning when I became observant, then I would go to a class, then I would come home, my wife would tell me, no, how was the class? It's amazing. What did you learn? Torah. No, what did he teach? The parasha. But tell me something. It's so deep, I don't know if you're going to get it. I'll tell it to you on the Shabbat table. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't even remember one word. Oh, there's something wrong with me. Sitting and I'm listening to every word and then nothing stays? Like a cement wall? So, and how many times something happens to you, you learn from it. The next time it happens again, you're like, I failed last time. What, I'm failing again? I didn't learn from the mistake last time? So this klipa is called riv, and the power of this klipa is shichecha, is forgetness, that I forget things. I'm not talking about that you forget the keys. I'm talking about that you're forgetting things that you learned. Now, what do we have to uproot this klipa? Is the power of zachor. Zachor et asher asa lecha Amalek b'Mitzrayim. How are we remembering? By uprooting Amalek. So whatever I remember that Amalek did to me, when I'm doing, this is a mitzvah to say, the remembering, then I'm uprooting now the klipa of this shechicha of riv. Now, very interestingly, it says in the Torah, in the Megillah, a certain word, and it repeats it 5 times. The word that it repeats is kedat. Kaf Dalet Taf. Kaf Dalet Taf is one of the holy names. And kedat, you can translate it as the religion. But nevertheless, it comes 5 times in the Megillah in different contexts. And this holy name, kedat, is 5 times you can find it in the Megillah. 5 times the word kedat is the verse that we have in this week's parasha. It's actually last week's parasha. V'asu li mikdash v'shachandi betocham. And we're going to get to this in a second. I just want to say the idea, then we'll go more further in it. 10 times the word kedat, 10 times, 10 times the word riv, this name of the klipa, is which is the same letters of meriva, of riv, then you have as follows. 10 times is the same gematria also, v'asitim al-mikdash v'shachandi betocham, and twice the word kedat is the numerical value of the word riv, resh yud bet, which is the name of the klipa. And so we have 2 things that this klipa does that we can learn from. First of all is riv. Riv is a fight or an argument or disagreement. And this is something that we see everywhere, that this klipa constantly wants to come between 2 people to do a disagreement and an argument and a fight. So it can happen between 2 people, it can happen between 2 congregations, between 2 communities. Constantly we are subject to this attack of an argument. If you see in any type of situation that it's bringing you into an argument or disagreement, this way the red lights have to start flashing, that you have to stay away from. Any time that any situation brings you any type of argument, that's where you have to take a step back. And we find it like 20 times a day. How many times your husband comes home tired after work and he says the wrong word, and you know that if you're going to say another word, that's it. The battle starts. That's where you have to be smart in saying, I'm not going to answer now, right now. Because if I answer, even though I'm right, then what is it? What's going to be the result? I'm going to be an argument. It's going to be a fight. We have to remember that in our life, it's not always about being right. It's about being smart. And you need to know sometimes when to zip your mouth, because your extra word will just throw another piece of wood into the fire, and then it all goes kaboom. So I have to take from that this klipa, this energy, is constantly going to try to put me in a place that I'm going to fall into some type of an argument. Bechlal, if you want to look at our own exile, that I believe that one of the biggest problems that we have, that we're still in exile, is the fact that everybody hates each other. Torah, Baruch Hashem, we have a lot. Everywhere you look, you'll find Torah. There are yeshivot all over the world. There are millions of hours of Torah online. Everywhere you look, there's shiurei Torah. So we're not lacking Torah. Chesed, Baruch Hashem, kindness and charity, there are thousands of charitable organizations. I don't know how many emails you get. I get 40 emails a day with fundraisers, and this yeshiva, and that cause, and this. And Baruch Hashem, there's a lot of chesed. We have a lot of things going on for us in our generation that are amazing. But unfortunately, on the flip side, on the negative side, the hate between everybody, whoa, Shem Yerachem, what hate people have towards each other. Because he's Sephardi and he's Ashkenazi, and he's this group and he's that group, and he said this and he said that. You know, this story happened at the time when they were out of Yerushalayim for 70 years. The first Bet HaMikdash was destroyed from 3 sins: idol worship, forbidden relations, and bloodshed. Since the sin was revealed, the length of the exile was revealed. As they're going out of Yerushalayim, the prophet tells them 70 years you're going to be out, and then you're making a U-turn. The next temple was destroyed from 1 sin, Sinat Chinam, hating another person for no reason. Since the sin is not revealed, then the length of the exile is not revealed. And up until now, 1950 years, we're still in exile from Sinat Chinam. Now a lot of people say, what do you mean the sin is not revealed? Well, idol worship, you see if I'm worshipping an idol. Bloodshed and forbidden relations, it's obvious, you see it. But Sinat Chinam, I can smile at you all day long. How are you? And in my heart, I'm like, I can't stand you. So this Sinat Chinam is this epidemic that we have in our generation that is stopping the redemption from happening. Is the fact that I don't like you. Because you dress different, you talk different, you have a different Rebbe, you believe something different, whatever it is. I have to understand that this Sinat Chinam is one of the biggest problems, what is causing this riv, this meriva, this argument. And I need to know how to not let it happen, to bypass it, not to feed into this desire of an argument. And it can be in my own home. Sometimes, like I told you, it's all it takes is one word that you answer your husband, and or your child, or sometimes you just need to know when to be quiet. And you're quiet, the storm passes, then you can come and talk about it or start the argument. But you want to find yourself in many cases that, forget about that you're right. You know, in most cases you are the right one. But it's not about being right, it's about being smart. And being smart sometimes is know how to be quiet and not to say anything, then you don't initiate the fight. And even if you're right, so what? So sometimes you humble yourself. This is one thing we want to take from that. But it says something very interesting. We just learned that in last week's parasha, in Parashat Truma. Usually Parashat Truma is very close to Purim. Now we have a leap year, so it's a little bit far. But we have an unbelievable commandment of Vasitim lemikdash v'shachanti betocham. Big question in our sages, why does it say betocham? It should say betocho. Right? Vasitim lemikdash, mikdash is one. Betocham is plural, is many. It should say v'shachanti betocho. So our sages answer, of course, betocham, betoch kol echad mimchem. Each and every one of us, this is the mikdash. This is the dwelling place for Hashem. You are the Mishkan. Which is a beautiful answer, of course, that I have to make my body a Mishkan, a dwelling place for Hashem. And my body has to be holy, my mind has to be holy, my house has to be holy, everything around me has to be holy. This is the mikdash. That's how Hashem dwells in my life. There's another way of looking at it, that if you're taking the word betocham, and you cut the word, this is brought down by the Ari HaKadosh, and he says, read it betoch mem. If you read the word betocham, bet, taf, chaf, vav, mem sofit, cut the word and just read it betoch, inside the mem, in the mem. Now what is the mem? This is not a regular mem, this is a square mem, what is called the mem sofit. What is this betoch mem? The structure of the mem sofit is a square, 4 walls. Very soon, now we're talking about the Megillah, very soon is Purim. There are 4 mitzvot that we have to fulfill in Purim. And all these mitzvot, they start with the letter Mem. I call it the 4 Mems. The first mitzvah is Mikra Megillah. You have to read the Megillah. Starts with the Mem. The next one is Matanot Le'Evyonim, right? Presents and charity for the poor people. Starts with the Mem. Third one, Mishloach Manot. Mishloach manot is when we exchange gifts, the parcels of food. It has to be food. And the last one, mishteh v'simcha. We have to make a feast and a meal. 4 mems, 4 mitzvot, and everybody's obligated. Men and women, and kids. Everybody has to do it. Now, I'm not only obligated in doing it in Purim. All year round, these are the 4 mitzvot that allow me to achieve something very, very great. The first mitzvah is Mikra Megillah. I don't read the Megillah every day, but you know what I do every day that I need to do is learn Torah. Mikra Megillah corresponds to learning Torah. Every day I have to learn Torah. Women, men, children, everybody has to learn Torah. Whether it's 10 minutes or an hour or 5 hours, every day I have to learn Torah. The next one is Matanot Le'Evyonim, presents and charitable acts. I have to do acts of kindness. Very simple. Every day I have to do acts of kindness. Sometimes writing a check, sometimes giving a quarter, sometimes taking somebody on a ride. But every day I have to have a few acts of kindness. If you want to listen to me, minimum 5 acts of kindness every day. If you finish your day and you didn't do 5 acts of kindness, don't go to sleep. Because we have to do acts of kindness. And you have to do it with all your heart. Writing a check sometimes is very easy. But to babysit your neighbor's kids when you really don't want to, but they need to go and do something, that's a little bit of a sacrifice here. Nevertheless, we want to do a lot of acts of kindness, and the real acts of kindness when it's not convenient to you. When it's convenient for you, that's very easy. But when you do the real mitzvah, and when it's very, very hard. There's a special mitzvah that we do, it's called Achnasat Orchim. When you have 17-room mansion, it's not a big deal to do Achnasat Orchim. When you live in a studio apartment and somebody lives in your living room for 2 weeks on your couch, that's Achnasat Orchim. So when you're doing acts of kindness, it has to be when it's really not convenient to you. The third one is Mishloach Manot. I'll skip that for now. Let's go to the fourth one. The fourth one is Mishteh V'Simcha. Mishteh Simcha means a feast. When do we have feast? On Shabbat we have 3 feasts. That means that I have to observe Shabbat to the fullest. So I have to learn Torah every day. I have to do acts of kindness every day. Observe Shabbat to the fullest. Now I have the third mitzvah, but the fourth one. Very weird mitzvah. I give you a package of food, and in exchange, you give me one. Why don't I just keep my own food, and you keep your food? Now, I don't know how it is in America, but I grew up in Israel, and in Israel, we had the custom that you come to school with your costume, and you bring a mishloach manot, and you put it on the table of the teacher, and then somehow, randomly, every kid goes and takes a different mishloach manot, and that's how you exchange the mishloach manot. I had the worst mishloach manot karma in the world. I would bring the Rolls Royce of the mishloach manot, and I would get back like a stinky bag of dried bamba. And I was like, what is this? I brought like literally the Rolls Royce of the mishloach manot with all the fancy stuff, and I would get the dried fruit. And every year I would tell my mom, I'm not bringing mishloach manot anymore. So what's the idea of mishloach manot? The Ari Kadosh explains something very interesting, that each and every one of us possesses a godly spark in our soul that nobody else has. It's a unique spark. The same way that our faces are different, the same way that our fingerprints are different, it's because our soul is different. There's no replica or duplication of a soul, and it has a unique godly spark. When we give Mishlochei Manot, I give you a piece of my spark, and you give me a piece of your spark, and we share. This corresponds to the mitzvah of Ahavat Chinam, of loving another person with no conditions, and not hating another person, not being judgmental to another person. I don't even know you. Why are you judgmental? I don't even know who you are. What was the circumstances, and I'm judging a person, I'm hating a person. This is Sinat Chinam. So this mitzvah is to bring me to understand that every day I have to do an act that reverses it. How many times a day are you judgmental towards people? How many times a day you hate another person? You don't even know the person. Or maybe you do. So we have to focus on these 4 mitzvot. Learning Torah, acts of kindness, observing Shabbat, and the most important and hard one is this Ahavat Israel, this unconditional love. That's how we close our mem. 4 walls, nothing can come in. The Yetzer Hara cannot come in. And that's how we have Hashem dwell in our life. Asitim lemikdash, v'shachanti betocham, betoch hamem. When I have this powerful structure of these 4 mitzvot, that are, of course, manifested into many mitzvot, but I build this structure of mikdash, that's when Hashem can dwell into my life. Then when Hashem is dwelling into my life, then I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm successful, everything that needs to happen, even if I have challenges, even if I have some days that are not so great, but that's part of the course of what I have to go through, and that's how I build a mikdash to the Kadosh Baruch Hu. That's how we go to the next stage of Pesach, of going out of our own exile. So I hope that with a little bit of insights that we got tonight, even though there's so much more, but with a little bit of insights that we can take something, and like I said in the beginning of the class, that you want to apply that. If you walk out of the door tonight, I'm not expecting you to memorize what I said. That's why we have a video camera. But at least you have to come with a conclusion. If you leave any class, not only tonight, and there's no conclusion of what did I learn and what is going to happen right now, then you have to have a conclusion. So I hope you take a little bit of the details that we talked about tonight and to understand that the whole story that we're about to read is the story of my life. And I have to understand that I have a whole battle here within me, battle around me, the battle of good and evil, and how am I segregating myself in a way that it doesn't affect me. So I have to build a mikdash, and I have to be very particular with Torah, very particular with acts of kindness, very particular with Shabbat, and needless to say, this love and hate problem that we have, then I'm closing myself very, very tight. Now go to the whole battle with the Yetzer Hara. Then we gave enough information to put me into some type of a program, and how am I making sure that I'm not falling prey to the Yetzer Hara, to make sure that all this trouble that I have to go through is just to prepare me for a much better thing. And to understand that very soon, then we will see this godly revelation. Right now there's a concealment of the light, there's a hastara. But very soon this is over. Very soon I'll be able to see, now I understand why I had to go through all these problems. So B'ezrat Hashem, we'll be able to march into Purim, and as it says in the end of the Megillah, v'leYehudim hayta ora v'simcha v'sason v'ikar, and the Jews had a lot of joy and happiness and wealth and health and success and everything that they wanted. B'ezrat Hashem, we should take advantage of the 2 months of Adar. I mean, we're already a couple of days into the first Adar, but we have double the power, 60 days of power to bring out all this amazing energy that is hidden in the month of Adar, to allow me that once I'm done with that, then I go into the month of Nisan, is where I go into my personal freedom, that I go out of my own slavery, out of my own exile. And needless to say, we all want to be out of or not only of our own exile, but out of the general exile. And B'ezrat Hashem, we should merit to see the coming of Mashiach with our own eyes. It should happen with mercy. As we say 3 times a day, v'techazena einenu b'shuvcha leTzion v'rachamim, that we should see the coming of Hashem to Yerushalayim with mercy. B'ezrat Hashem, we should be able to, the same way that after Purim they made a U-turn and went back to Eretz Yisrael, that you should all make a U-turn and come back to Eretz Yisrael even before me, before I'm going back home.